Welcome to Jurassic Park.
I'm not even supposed to be here today.
I'm just a fucked up girl who's looking for my own peace of mind.
Welcome to the party, pal.
I'll be back.
I'll have what she's having.
I'm gonna make him an offer again.
Here's looking at you, kid.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello, I'm your host Jim McLean. Welcome back to another episode of More Than Pixels on a Screen, a spoilerific movie review podcast brought to you by Banterflix. It's the beginning of the month, listeners. That means only one thing. Ramble! Ramble! It's the Ramble episode, listeners. Now, we're recording this remotely. I'll come into it a little bit and explain a little bit about the reasoning for that. But I can't ramble on my own. And there's only one man I want to share a bowl of ramble and custard with, and that's the lovely Adam Neeson.
Did somebody ask for custard?
So we are going to be talking, I think what we're going to do with these ramble episodes, Adam, month to month, we'll look at older films. So I know near the end of this episode we'll be talking about some of the films we'll be looking at throughout August. And of course you're going to have Crime Scene to Screen near the end of the month. But I think on the Ramble episodes, and particularly now for the next 2 months, the TV show's off the air. Thank fuck, says some people. But we're going to talk about some of the stuff we've watched more recently in the cinema. So there's loads that have been out through July. And I haven't been to see anything. Adam, I haven't been to cinema at all throughout July because I have been sicky no well. We'll come to that. That's part of the reason why we're recording remotely. But as we go to record, where I can see you, the listeners can't. You're in the Nostromo. I'm just in my humble little studio here in Belfast, but you're fresh from Belfast Pride.
I am. I was, bigging it up with the gays, waving the drag queens. I was having a great time. There's nothing better on a Saturday than standing in the rain dancing to It's Raining Men.
How vigorously were you dancing?
To be fair, I did leave when an old granny, don't know if she was a granny, but she was an older woman, was giving it fucking 90, just thrusting into the crowd. And I was like, maybe I should go.
That'll do, pig. That'll do.
I think I've seen enough.
You sadly didn't get to see everything, though. Listen to previous podcasts for that. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to Pride this year. Last year, Adam, with my lovely employer, Q Radio, I got to be part of the parade itself. I got to walk through and push the Q Radio float.
I was hoping you would have been on the float.
Yeah, they could have this year. They could have just wheeled me round and just been like, I could have just sat there at the top from a wee hospital bed, just kind of going, hello, hello. Or just be mysterious and just say, oh, I doesn't want to come out yet. Just keep a wee sheet over my head and just have a wee, like in The Simpsons when it's like the people that aren't ready to come out yet and they're like, hiya, just the wee hands.
I thought you meant the Elephant Man.
No, it would just scare people. So, yes, as I said, Adam, we're recording this remotely. Normally, we have a lovely studio in Belfast that is usually too warm. And Adam usually forgets the code for when he goes for a wee. And then he has to phone me going, what's the code to get out? I can't remember. Or I don't know how to use your fob. But we are recording this remotely and probably for the next couple of weeks, listeners. Because I had to go for a little operation and at the beginning of July. There was a slight complication, got an infection. I'm not going into too much details, but Adam, guess what? I ended up earlier this week with a doctor with his finger inside me, and it was not through the anal cavity.
Oh, was it your birthday?
Yeah, just said to him, look, mate, I know you just were going to take my temperature, but you wouldn't just put a finger inside me. No, I've post-surgery, I've got a wound that won't heal. And he said, let me just check. I'm hoping he was a doctor. Because as I told you, or started to tell you before we began recording, so I had to go up to Acknagelvin and was up in the ward, and they put me on a nice little bed, and there was few other people there waiting to be seen. It was kind of like a more advanced A&E or more, I don't know what the term would be, ACU I think is what they call it. And I was sitting there in the bed and I dozed off, and the next minute there was a fella just stand beside me and he said, hello, I'm your doctor, let me see your wound. And by this stage I'm just like, I'm showing it to everybody. It's like, there you go. But I do have problems telling people where it is. So I was kind of saying it's like the lower abdomen. And they're like, where? It's like the groin area. And I was talking to a nurse the other day, said, you mean your pubic area? And you're like, yes, it's my pubic area. And he literally, Adam, just was like, got me to take my dressing off and said, I'm going to put my finger inside you. I was like, all right, all right, mate. What do you want, 20 quid or 30? And he did it, yeah. So I'm not able to go out and about and gallivant at the minute. That's why, unfortunately, I miss Pride. And that's why, for this recording, it's a bit of an awkward one because there's been loads of good films out throughout July. And if you've been anywhere on social media, posters, buses, cinemas, I mean, you can't avoid Deadpool and Wolverine, which you have seen. We're going to be talking about that. I haven't got to see that yet. Twisters has been out. Everyone's getting excited about Glenn Powell's white t-shirt. Or wet t-shirt, I should say.
People were getting blown away.
They were, and Joe McElroy literally was. So Joe has got a little review for us of that. Have you seen Twisters yet?
Not yet. It came out at a really, I don't want to say an awkward stage. It came out near the 12th, so it didn't really get out of the house. Also, I had terrible COVID for the start of July.
So you've been sick and I've been sick.
Yeah, the Banterflick boys were out of commish. And Joe can contest because I went and seen Maxine, and we'll talk about it a wee bit, and he was sat in the row in front of me.
So you and Joe, Banterflick's boys, you didn't, that's our deputy editor you're talking about, the arspert, but you didn't sit beside each other.
I'll tell you why, because I texted him, I was in work that morning, and I was like, Joe, you heading to this? And he was like, I'll see you there. And I was like, just gonna let you know, I have a wild fever, and I think I might be sick, so I'm not gonna sit beside you. And he was like, appreciate that. Thanks very much. And then by the time it came to watch Maxine, Joe texted me afterwards and said that he turned around and looked at me and he thought I was dead. I was in the height of fever during Maxine, but I'll tell you what, enjoyed it.
Can't wait for that review. We'll talk about that. So Twisters has been out. I know Longlegs is there. A lot of people have been excited about Longlegs. I have seen that. I got sent a screener for that. So I'm delighted to say I've seen that. Another film I got sent a screener for was Thelma. And you haven't seen that, starring June Squibb, which I loved. But we'll talk about that in a wee bit. And everything else has mostly been online on streaming services. So I think what we are going to do in this pod, because we have loads to cram in, we're going to do a Ramble edition. Ramble and custard, as you say, Adam. Then we're going to do an extra serving. I can hear our listeners going, oh, for fuck's sake. No. You know, is not one Ramble a month not enough? But no, we're going to do in a couple of days' time, we're going to release extra servings. We're going to try a few things differently. And if it works, people enjoy them, we might keep it up. Or we might say, fuck it, I don't know. We'll just go back to normal service. So other than COVID, Adam, and Pride, anything else exciting for you in July before we get into the nitty and gritty? Any, our listeners seem to love our shitting ourselves stories. I've been on a lot of antibiotics. I've come close. I'll tell you that a few times in the last few weeks. But thankfully, I'm pleased to say that the cheeks are clean.
Good. Look, do you use? Here we go. We're in the Ramble edition. Do you use moist towelette wipes when you go to the bathroom, or are you just a strictly dry man?
Mate, I keep it real. Dry. And we buy all our toilet roll, or I should say my lovely wife buys all our toilet roll through TikTok, the TikTok shop. So China know everything about our bowel movements, and she just bulk buys toilet roll. So we've got, like, in this little office here, off camera, you can see there's about 300 toilet roll that we have. Not really, we've got about 60.
Now, is it quality? You getting quality rolls from China, or?
Of course it's not. Of course it's not. Of course it's not. And you're like, oh, right here, just go through a roll in one movement. You're like, oh, okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Do you know what I love, though? Do you know what, there's no better, and I think this is for men and women alike. Do you know when you just do just an epic bowel movement, and you just go to give yourself a wee clean, but it was just that perfect? Just nothing. Just nothing on the toilet. There's no better feeling in this world.
Do you ever get toilet? Do you ever have such a bad shite that before the toilet roll even touches your arse, it's already absorbed all of the liquid? Like fucking one sheet does plenty.
Am I getting my arse and my back confused again? I have to just waddle round like the penguin in Batman Returns round to my other wife, not my other wife, my other half, and go, here, love, have we looked there? Is that clean? That clean, dude? That can't be clean. It's like when you have, I can't believe it's not butter. I can't believe it's not butter.
Did you see the video of Danny DeVito getting his balls bit by a monkey on the set of Batman Returns?
I did.
Fantastic stuff.
Yeah, that's what we're here for.
Yes, but in terms of July for me, sick.
Hiding from Protestant marchers.
Well,
Here, did you see the Flasher? Did you hear about that story?
I enjoyed that. I don't know if you know this. I'm doing this in quotes. Production company is called Mooncat Productions. Do you know what a Mooncat is?
It's your production company.
It's my production company, but it's a Mooncat is a term for a girl that, you know, even though she's probably going to destroy your life and a little bit crazy, you're like, here, what's happening?
What you're saying is the risk is worth the gain.
Yeah, 100%. And whenever I seen that girl on the 12th getting her jabs out, I was like, oh, she's one of the true ones.
Sign her up to my production company, please. But yes, you're working on is it another short or are you working on a feature?
I'm working on another short, something a little bit different. It's still horror based, but something a little bit different. It's so depressed. I'll not say what the subject is, because it gives away the game, but it's so depressing to write that I have to take a lot of breaks from it, because it's just so heavy, but also fun. And then I've just been covering Fantasia Fest and Fright Fest for the Fright Club NI. And we'll hear from Gav later.
Yes, possibly on the second servings edition of this podcast. But you're talking about short films. We're talking about Belfast and Pride and girls getting their ditties out on the 12th. Another event that happened in Belfast last month was, of course, Film Devour 35. Now, you'll remember, Adam, that you and I, when we weren't both sicky no well, we did a lovely showcase of Film Devour 34. We got the lovely Brian Mulholland into the studio and we talked about the films. Because we were both sick, that couldn't happen. So I reached out to Brian, lovely Mr. Mulholland, and he sent us a little voice note and told us about kind of what went down.
Hello everyone in Banderflex land, Brian Mulholland here from Film Devour, and we're fresh off our latest event, Film Devour number 35, that took place in the Black Box, as always, the home of Devour. And we had a great night. We showed 13 short films from local filmmakers, and it was probably one of the strongest Devours we've done yet, although I feel like I say that every time. We, as always, give out 2 awards. The Audience Choice Award went to In Wake of John Doyle, written and directed by Niall McCluskey and Thomas Bennett, which is like a found footage kind of old school feel to it, about a traumatic event that happened to a priest, and as he returns back to face such trauma. It's a really good film. The crowd seemed to really enjoy it. The Director's Choice Award went to The Magic Spade, which is written by Darren Gibson and directed by Jim McMorrow, who's a friend I know of Banterflix. It is absolutely a wonderful film. It's probably one of the most accomplished films we've ever shown at Film Devour. Very professional, really, really good story, brilliantly acted, produced, directed. It looks great. I think everyone involved in that movie should be incredibly proud of it. I'm pretty sure everyone has a great future ahead of them. It was a pleasure to show it, and in fairness, it was the first time someone has stood and applauded a movie. So it got a one-man standing ovation, and the rest of the crowd absolutely loved it as well. So really fun movie, and look for that when it goes into other festivals. I'm sure it will travel far and wide. Yes, so another great evening. The crowd was so respectful of the movies, and they're like us, like most of your listeners, they're pure cinephiles, and they just want entertained. And local filmmakers and storytellers are definitely doing that. So yeah, thanks to the team of Devour again. Thanks to Banterflix for, as always, showing support for us. We hope to be back and maybe do another event towards the end of the year, hopefully. For 2024 is out, purely because the content is out there and the demand seems to be there. And until then, keep watching movies, keep doing great things, Banterflix, and thank you so much. Stay beautiful.
Do you think he's talking there, Adam? Do you think he's talking to me to stay beautiful, or is talking to you, talking to both of us? Do you think we are beautiful enough? Like, I'm looking at us both now on the camera. We're two beautiful men.
Yeah, I think, Brian's catchphrase of "Stay Beautiful," he just likes to put it out into the world. He's a positive thinking man, and that's why we love him. Also, the phrase "one man standing ovation" is surely code for erection.
Hey, I might be in my 40s, Adam, but I've definitely had a few one-man standing ovations over the years. But more importantly, as much as I love the beautiful Brian Mulholland, he's a beautiful man. He doesn't need to stay beautiful. He just knows he's beautiful. But he failed to mention something about the Magic Spade. And that was actually my big screen debut. And I'm genuinely gutted I didn't get to see it, because Campmate 3, although he doesn't have any speaking lines, and I think filmmaker Jim McMorrow would definitely agree that he makes the short work. And it's so my feature debut, short debut, I am pleased to say I'm in an award-winning short. So if you're looking some actors for your short, Adam, I have a full range. I can play from happy to see people, confused to angry, and I bring my own props, because Jim said to me, you're coming down, you're playing a campmate. So I was like, well, I need something to do with my hands, because that's what they always say, Adam. That's what they always say. It's like, have something in your hands. So I brought a wee walking stick. And that's what I think made it great. So I'm gutted that we didn't get to Devour this time. Great that we had Bran on, as we'll always champion it. And I haven't seen, so that the Magic Spade, I know, won the director's choice. I haven't seen the short that won the audience choice, but there was a couple actually I noticed I've seen before, and one was submitted to our Dark Hedges Festival last year, but unfortunately I had to withdraw because it was clashing with the Belfast Festival, and it was about a banshee. Apologies, I don't have the name in front of me. Great short. So great to see again that it's been so well supported.
I like to think that it won solely on your performance.
So do I.
That's what the guy was applauding. He couldn't believe his eyes.
He couldn't believe there's newsman Jim, that gobshite off the telly. Jim McMorrow, tried to cheer me up the next day, because I sent him a message going, "Congratulations, good sir." And he said, "Jim, I'm not going to lie, there was someone in the audience who went, there's your man." And I was like, yeah, I'm making it at him. So Film Devour, so check out their social media. They're on I think they're on Instagram, Facebook, X, and I'll still like to call it Twitter. I don't know if Devour's on TikTok or not yet. I'm not quite sure. But they will put a call out for submissions, and that goes really, really quickly. So check it out. And of course, I should also shamelessly at this point plug on our website, our events guide. So we have a list of everything that's going on, and if anyone's listening wants to get something submitted or something showcased on the website, drop us an email, info@banderflix.com. So that's Film Devour, that's short films. I think we'll move on now, Adam, just before we get into talking about Deadpool and Wolverine, because you're busting to talk about that. Like everyone, you can't open social media, you can't go outside your house without some kind of promotional material for that movie. It just seems to be everywhere. It is the event movie of the year, so Disney would have us believe. Now, we had a Ramble episode recorded last month Unfortunately, we've had a few tech problems with that recording, and we can't get back into the studio to get the source file. So I had got an interview with the director, Robert Morgan, about his horror feature, Stopmotion. It's available on Shudder now. We have both seen it. It's also available now on DVD and Blu Ray, so you can check that out. So if you want to get down to HMV Belfast or even order on Amazon, you can. And just because at the minute I don't know when I'm going to get back into the studio, I thought we'd use that interview now. So here's my interview via Zoom with director Robert Morgan about Stopmotion.
So, the girl runs away through the woods. She finds a house and she hides in it.
And who's coming for her? Maybe a wolf? Like a Red Riding Hood type thing?
It's a man.
What man?
A man no one wants to meet. He comes on 3 nights.
What does he want?
Hey, that's much better. See? You can use her skin. See? Looks better from down here.
Like that?
Yeah.
I'm joined now by the director and co-writer of Stopmotion. It's going to be available on DVD and various VOD platforms from the 1st of July. I believe, Robert, it's already available on Shudder streaming service.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, I think it came
Yes.
out a couple of weeks ago on Shudder.
Yes, so I saw this film at the London Film Festival last
Okay.
year. Very
Yeah.
impressed by it. I do love a good, creepy, nasty horror feature. As the director and co-writer, do you want to tell our viewers here in Belfast a little bit about the film, as much as you feel they need to know going in?
Yeah, I mean, Stop Motion is a psychological horror film about a young stop motion animator played by Aisling Franciosi, who embarks upon a new film, a stop motion film, and she uses very questionable materials in the making of that film, and it's about how the film kind of takes on a life of her own, and she kind of spirals down into this kind of creative sort of madness while making the film, and then scary, weird, bad things happen.
It's putting it lightly. I've seen the film. As I say, I'm a horror fan. I program a horror festival here in Belfast. I read the blurb about the film as I say at the London Film Festival. Had to see it. Seen it at the Prince Charles, if my memory is correct. Yourself and cast and crew were there. Can you tell us a little bit about the genesis of this project and how it mothballed into what we get to see from July?
Well, my background is in stop motion animation. I've been making stop motion animation films for like 25 years.
I am
so
hoping, Robert, you've never made any stop motion movies like what we see in Stop Motion.
they're pretty much all like that, actually. So it's a world I know well, and I just, I had an experience when I was making a short film where I had that sensation that the film was taking on a life of its own. Puppets have a way of doing that. You work with puppets, and it's weird. They do start to kind of feel like they're alive in front of you. And so I always thought, and I'd never seen stop motion animation depicted in a film before as a vocation that people do. I've never seen that, So that was the genesis of it. Is like I just thought making a film about the process of stop motion and having this character who is struggling with these puppets that are kind of coming alive, and her own sort of madness as she goes into it. It was always going to be a sort of the archetype classic kind of artist goes mad story. That sort of archetypal kind of story, which has been done many times, but I felt doing it through the lens of this particular art form was really unique. So that was the sort of genesis of it.
Yeah, as I said, and I keep coming back to it, I was really impressed. It's a type of horror film I enjoy, and I think you've mentioned your leading lady, Aisling, who viewers may know from The Nightingale, another a very tough film in its own way. But can you tell us about the casting? Well, I'm always hoping there's an intriguing story involved with the casting.
I'm sorry to disappoint you.
Oh, make something up, Robert.
I had been looking around at the landscape. I mean, you know, Ella, the character of Ella, is in every single scene in the film. So, it's a fairly internal performance. She's a very internal character, so she's quite quiet a lot of the time, and it's not a performance that comes through dialogue. It comes through body language and silence, and that's really, really tough for an actor. And I was looking around at the landscape and seeing an awful lot of actors who were very, very polished and very good at delivering their lines and standing on their marks and stuff. But it's partly to do with drama and TV and films nowadays where everyone talks all the time. There's not that much silence actually in films. So it was partly that, trying to find someone who I thought could do that. But Aisling was on a very short list of actors who I thought could pull this off through the intensity of what I'd seen her do, but also the versatility and also just the way that she inhabits her roles. I'd seen her in 4 or 5 different things. She was completely different in every single one of them. But it felt like she was that person. I could tell she was the kind of person who just inhabits the role. So we sent the script to her. She loved it. And when I spoke to her, what impressed me about her was the fact that she absolutely understood it. It's like, not from an animation perspective, but from a kind of creative, like a tortured creative perspective of the struggles of trying to be a creative person, and how difficult that can be, from her coming at it from an acting perspective. But she related to that sort of, you know, the imposter syndrome and the self-doubt and how you just give everything to the arts and it takes from you and it eats you alive, you know. All those kinds of elements that she really, really responded to. So I knew straight as soon as I spoke to her, I just knew she was going to be amazing.
She's a fantastic actor. I mean, I've been seeing her in The Nightingale. I'm off the top of my head. I know there are other films and features, TV shows she's been in, but she's tremendous in that sense that she can show you everything without saying anything.
You can see her thinking.
Yeah,
you know, that you can see her moving around within the scene, and you can see the thought process, and that's what I wanted. I think she's extremely good at that.
If I'm right, Robert, was this your feature debut? I know you've done quite a few shorts in the past. Was this your feature debut?
Yes.
Yes. How did you find that process, particularly when you're with a film in stop motion that features a lot of stop motion within the feature? How was that process? How did you find that from moving from shorts to features? I guess the answer a lot of filmmakers always say it's all about time management, prep, but the reality of once you get into that, how did you find that, the confines of making that the move from shorts to features?
Yeah, it's the time is definitely a big thing. It's just like the ticking clock and the amount of material you have to get through every day. And I'm used to working in stop motion where you do one shot every day or every 2 days. Now you're doing 4, 5, 6 scenes in a day. So that was really, really hard, and that was a challenge. But also learning to delegate and give areas to other collaborators, so that just to trust your collaborators, to like not be micromanaging everybody, to choose the team very, very carefully. I mean, I remember reading or hearing an interview with Guillermo del Toro, and he said, which really stuck with me, and he said 50% of directing is selection. In other words, you very carefully select the team that you're working with, and you're halfway there. You know, you've got the right DP, you've got the right production design, you've got the right cast. Then you just tune them in, and then you have to. I mean, you've got no choice because you have like no time. You can't be steering, changing direction when you're on the set because you don't have time to do that. You just got to execute it. So you choose your team very carefully and make sure everybody's tuned in to the sort of the vision, and then kind of give them a lot of space to just do it. So that my job is really just focusing on the monitor and just making sure I've got what I need to tell the story.
And I know you don't have the time to name but every single member of your team. Just when you mention that team effort, you're the director, co-writer on the project, so you will be the face, I suppose, Aisling as well, and the other cast members. But who are the members of your team that now you've got the opportunity just to give a bit of a shout out to?
Yeah, I mean, Felicity Hickson, the production designer, just absolutely amazing, real kind of partner on this film. She really kind of were like, designing the sets and designing the look, helping even with the relationship between all the puppets and stuff. She was just absolutely amazing. Leo Hinston, the cinematographer, who just sort of did an amazing job. Very experienced as well, so that was really useful for me to have somebody he's done everything. He's been around for ages, so it was very good for me to have someone who could see the time pitfalls ahead of the time. So like I had ideas, like for example, there's this party scene in the film, and I originally wanted it all to be one very long take, the entire thing. And he's like, forget it. You're not going to have time to, like, setting up those kinds of one-ers. That's going to take an entire day. And we had like 4 other scenes to do that day. So he was very good at kind of going, well, trying to understand what I wanted to do, but at the same time saying, okay, realistically, I've been there. We're not going to have time to do that. So you need to rethink it, you know. Saffron Colleen, the costume designer, was amazing. Scarlett O'Connell did the makeup. Dan Martin, who did all the visual effects, the practical effects. I mean, just a really great creative team. Aurora Vogelli, the editor, was amazing. You know, everybody, basically.
The score, I have to admit, the one thing I remember from London, the score being fantastic. And as I say, I know you're pushed for time. What will we see you working on next? Do you think you'll stick about with using another kind of feature that involves stop motion in the project, or are going to move on to something completely different?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, I'm developing a bunch of projects at the moment. I think it needs to feel, the stop motion aspect of it needs to feel organic to the film. I mean, the reason it works, this film, is because it's all about stop motion. I don't want to just use it as a gimmick. Having said that, I still think using stop motion in a visual effects context it can be very interesting in its own right.
Well, it's creepy, it's physical, it's there. Yeah. You know, there's texture to it that you don't get from CGI.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I'm a big practical effects fan. So whatever I do, if the next thing, I mean, I'm working on a few things, and I think they're all going to have they all have quite a lot of weird visual things in it that would be done with, I expect, practical effects as much as possible anyway. So certainly that is important.
Fantastic. Well, I'm intrigued. I look forward to your next project, your next feature, Robert. Hopefully our paths shall cross again. It's been an absolute joy. Thank you very much for your time. And as we say, Stop Motion is out it's available on Shudder now, but from the 1st of July, it's going to be available on DVD, Blu Ray, and various VOD platforms. Thank you very much, Robert.
Thank you very much.
So that's my interview with Robert. Adam, we've talked about stop motion before. You were very angry with me because I built it up. I really liked it because it was... And this might come back when we're talking about Longlegs. It's creepy. It's for me, it was creepy, unsettling. The lead actress, Aisling, apologies, her surname has went out of my head. I know she was in... What's the director of The Babadook?
Jennifer Kent.
Yes. I know she was in Jennifer Kent's follow-up feature to The Babadook. She was great in that. Thought she's fab. It was creepy, icky, nasty when it wanted to be. And also I just thought the stop motion effects were great. But I built that up. I saw it at London Film Festival and really liked it. I built it up and went on and on and on about it. Adam, when you saw it, your thought was?
Not great. I thought, it was kind of my cup of tea going into it. And then just the execution of the whole movie itself just felt like they were holding back. I wanted more. The David Lynch of it all is definitely there on screen. And, by the end it does feel a little Mulholland Drive-ish. There's that sort of dream logic going on to the movie. And I just wanted more from it. There's just certain scenes that they went for the more obvious choice. Rather than taking a risk on anything else. And apologies to the young girl who plays the little kid in it, but she really... an annoying kid is always a hard thing in a movie to perfect, and, maybe a fucking handful of times you're actually like, oh, that kid was good, whereas this kid was more, Jake Lloyd in Phantom Menace than anything.
Right, Jake. We've always had such high words to say him, particularly the lovely things we've heard from your Uncle Liam about him. He loves me, Jake.
Spinning, that's a neat trick.
Yes, so differing views in that film. I know where you're coming from, and I am worried that maybe I got caught in the hype of it at the event, and then at being it there for I think it was the world premiere, or at least the UK premiere, and Really liked it. I think I just like the stop motion effects and the creepiness of that. But yeah, that's out on DVD and Blu Ray now, and it's also available on Shudder. So that's something that has been out for a while. Something that has just recently been released, of course, is Deadpool and Wolverine. And you've seen it, Adam. I haven't got to the cinema yet. So before we hear your thoughts, and we're going to say from the get-go, you're going to try your best not to spoiler. I think there is one cameo that the most recent trailer has spoiled. I'll leave that up to you if you want to talk about that. And I was listening to Kevin Feige talk about Disney's reasoning for that cameo being revealed, and it was because that actor was going to turn up and insisted they turned up at the premiere. So they were going to ask, well, why is that actor going to be at the premiere? Are they in the movie? So I'll leave that up to you, but I think we'll play a little bit of the trailer and then we'll hear Adam's review.
Sorry about that. Come here, girl.
Who are you?
Oh, I'm Deadpool. And I guess you're Deadpool too. But in here, everybody calls me Nice Pool. Oh my goodness, wait till you see Lady Pool. She is gorgeous. She just had a baby too, and can't even tell. I don't think you're supposed to say that. That's okay. I identify as a feminist. Right. Are those gold-plated 50 caliber Desert Eagle pistoleros? Of course. To match my ear huggy. Can I have them? Over my dead body. You're fun. And I guess you've already met Mary Poppins, a.k.a. Dogpool. Careful where you put your hand. She's 90% G-spot, and she'll let you know it. You let this little flirt out of your sight for 1 second, and she starts shopping for a new papa. If you can't be a responsible pet owner, then maybe you don't deserve this little unicorn. Guilty on all charges, Your Honor. It shan't happen again. Why are you so nice? It costs nothing to be kind.
Shutting the fuck up is also free.
Caliente. This is Logan. He's usually shirtless, but he's let himself go since the divorce.
So that's a little bit of the trailer of Deadpool and Wolverine. Adam, what do you think?
So going into this, I talked on the telly show, and I think we've talked on the podcast in the past, that I wasn't really looking forward to this from the trailers. It was a lot of, it seems to be effing and jeffing, and that's completely fine, of course. Like, fuck, we're doing enough on the podcast as it is. But it seems to be that, that's all the humor was going to be. But the more the marketing went on, and especially one of the more recent trailers that kind of highlighted more emotional beats from the movie, I was going into the cinema to watch it very positive in the hope that, we were going to get something a little bit more. Because we have spoke before too about Deadpool can be an emotional character. It isn't just, fun and games. He can deliver emotional punches. But watching Deadpool and Wolverine in the cinema was quite painful from the very start. Sean Levy as a director, I'm not a fan of, fucking Free Guy and the museum movies. He just the Adam Project. He just doesn't really have an eye for action, and he doesn't really have an eye for any sort of emotional depth. And towards the start of the movie, there's a sequence with Deadpool killing a lot of people, and it has a famous song in the background, and the way it's cut is that he's killing all these people, and then it cuts to Deadpool dancing. And obviously it's very obvious not Ryan Reynolds dancing to this specific song, but it seems as if like the Deadpool dancing was added additionally months later, and it doesn't mix with the original footage. From there is the real problem with the movie, because a lot of it feels like they went back and tampered with stuff in post, in reshoots, to sort of Frankenstein this movie together, to the point that there's scenes. I'll give you an example, and this is a slight spoiler for the start of the movie. Deadpool gets taken by the TVA.
That's not a loyalist group here in Northern Ireland. We just want to be clarified about that. The TVA say no surrender.
Ian Paisley is Loki. whenever me and my mate went and he had never watched Loki, and whenever we left, and he was like, I didn't know what the TVA was. I thought it was something to do with TV insurance. He is taken into the TVA because of his meddling from the end of Deadpool 2 when he's going through the timelines. And then halfway through the scene, it's established that that doesn't really matter. They just need him to fix something in the MCU. And that is sort of like they had an original idea that led from the second movie to an idea in this movie, and it just didn't meld. Another problem for me was that the Wolverine that we have in this film isn't the Wolverine that we have, seen on screen for the last 25 years. It's a different universe Wolverine. And so a lot of the emotional depth is gone because, he's not our Wolverine. So he's just a Wolverine. And he's a bit pathetic, and that sort of is like the arc of his story, that he's pathetic and builds himself back up again to be a savior. But there's bits where he's having flashbacks, or somebody goes into his mind and kind of is like, oh, here's all the thing you've lived through, and we're seeing clips of all the other movies, including Logan, and it's like, but you didn't live through those moments, so why are you showing me those moments? Which was weird. Like I say, the emotional stuff just wasn't there. It's they try to have Deadpool be like, oh, I'm gonna lose all of my friends and my girlfriend if we don't solve this problem. But there's literally one scene, maybe two scenes with the girlfriend of Vanessa from the two previous movies, and you're kind of like, do you like who really cares about these characters? There isn't really, apart from being in the first two movies, and it being his world, there isn't really that just emotional hook to Deadpool doing it, doing the whole action. It sort of gets muddled and loses its point, like myself in the middle. Um, Action wise, there's a scene um where it's a big battle scene with a lot of people, and it's very shaky cam and it's very hard to see. And then there's a fight scene towards the end that is Deadpool and Wolverine fighting a lot of people, and it's sort of like the old boy shot where it's panning to the right of the screen, like sort of like a Morbius strip in a comic, but in motion. And it was just really like it was lackluster, really. Action wise, they could have just been much better. Deadpool himself heavily ADR'd. Jokes they clearly added in post. There's a joke about fucking Hugh Jackman getting a divorce that they added, and Jackman doesn't react. So like it sort of feels like, oh, they added that in afterwards, but there's no reaction to it, so it just fucking sits there like a stale fart. Um, and then there is cameos from certain characters that are fun. I'm not gonna fucking sit here and tell you that when these certain characters came on screen, I was like, oh, but they are also. Someone said it on Twitter, like the Nicolas Cage cameo in The Flash required a certain amount of knowledge about, um, that story and why Nicolas Cage was the Flash. And there's certain cameos in this that a younger audience will be like, who the fuck is that? And a just standard audience that just likes these movies for what it is, if they weren't reading like slash film in the last 7 to 10 years, they'd be like, why is he this person? And then just to top it off, at the end, this isn't a spoiler. This is during the credits. There is behind the scenes footage of making all of the Fox Marvel movies over the years. Like them all having fun making it, and it's like the Fantastic Four, the fucking Fan Four Stick, the X-Men movies, Daredevil and stuff, and you just feel like it's a fucking an applause break for movies nobody ever liked. Movies that were made by criminals sometimes. And you're just sat there at the end. I see a lot of people being like, I got really emotional when they played that clip, and it's like, but if you asked 2 weeks ago if anybody likes the fucking Ben Affleck Daredevil, you would have got 4 people being like, "Ah, it's alright."
Well, the director's cut.
Yeah, you've got Coolio that saves it, but there's a lot in this movie, it just made me feel uncomfortable sometimes, a lot of sexual assault jokes, and they kind of play it off as if it's fine because it happened to Deadpool, so don't worry. A lot of, oh, I woke up with my finger in you, and you have an erection in front of Jim. And there's a scene where he gets a new outfit. Like in the Batman movies when they do like the turn and fucking it shows the cheeks and the nipples and stuff. There's a bit where it shows you the crotch, and the guy that's making the outfit keeps grabbing Deadpool's dick, and this happens 4 or 5 times, right? And then afterwards, Deadpool goes, "Here, you're fucking your costume designer's a wee bit handsy." He says something like that, and you're like, but if that was a woman, or if that was Captain America getting his fucking dick grabbed 45 times during a montage, you'd be like, come on, lads. But that's my thoughts. That's my big ramble on Deadpool.
Well, Adam, sometimes it's just nice to be touched. But that's me being very flippant. I know you're dealing with, a very serious subject matter, and it's typical me. I'm trying to be flippant. I get that. I haven't seen the film, so I can't judge. I will say, I'm sure there are people that are fans of those Fox movies. And I guess, in a way, as flawed as some of them are, and the issues both in terms of just general and just legally regarding some of the filmmakers that made those films, that they laid the benchmark for what we have now, and they still have a legacy, and they're clearly been incorporated in. They have been already with this whole multiverse stuff, some more than others, like the Fantastic Four. I know we are getting a whole new team for that in a couple of years. We've had some of the Fox X-Men already teased. If you really could be arsed, then to the post-credit of Marvels. I think it's Kelsey Grammer. It's been out for a while and nobody really cares for the Marvels, so no one cares. And I'm coming at this. I haven't seen the film. I have not been excited about it since it's been announced. In a complete opposite from, say, Spider-Man No Way Home, which was very different, again, from Sony's point of view with Spider-Man, but that was something I had a massive love for, and I know No Way Home didn't work for a couple of people. I know Jonathan Cardwell, I remember being very, a film blogger, used to be on the pod more often, haven't had him on for a while. He just did not like No Way Home at all. And I always got a sense with this movie that's the No Way Home way was going to go down. So here's this callback, here's that callback. I rewatched the 2 Deadpool movies, and I don't like them. I mean, I just come back and go, it's a bit more effing and jeffing, as you've said. The only bits, particularly of Deadpool 2, that I find funny is the X-Force sequence. Just because they had set up an X-Force movie, so it was kind of this great big double tease. It's like, we're going to have Deadpool, then we're going to have X-Force, this is going to be your X-Force team, and it all goes horribly wrong. And the post-credit scene, because the post-credit scene is like, because everyone always goes, oh, how important are they to the future of this franchise? And it was just 2 fingers up and going, well, we don't really care. We can shoot Ryan Reynolds. We can go back and shoot that Deadpool that nobody liked from the first Wolverine film. I don't know if you want to say this is a spoiler or not, Adam. I haven't heard. I was listening to Mark Kermode talk about this, so he's put it out there, and I have heard this rumor before. So we know that this is a different Wolverine from before, and I guess that's their way of saying, like, all the stuff that happened in Logan, which I think is still the benchmark for comic book movies of late, or more adult, of an R-rated comic book movie, I should say. But they've talked about this idea of there'll probably be a phrase that Marvel use, central characters that are important to a universe, and that once they die, universes start to decay. I don't know how much you want to talk about that. I've heard that being out there. But as a concept, as someone who dips his toe in Marvel Comics, I haven't heard this before. Is this something that's coming from the comics? Is this something that's coming through the movies? And what did you think of that?
It's only really something that comes through the comics. You know, to pinpoint one specific character as an anchor point in the universe is a bit flawed because, you know, does that mean, say, if fucking Spider-Man dies when he's 25, does that mean that Earth only exists for 25 years? It's a bit stupid. As a concept in the movie, though, without giving any spoilers, that sort of storyline resolves itself, I will say. I want to throw in something about Wolverine while we're talking about Wolverine. The reason I didn't like this Wolverine as much as well is that he is a reactionary character and also sort of like the heavy in the comic books. You know, he's a guy that hangs around the X Mansion. They don't send him on every mission. You know, if Storm can go solve something, Storm can go solve something. So to have him with Deadpool, who's another reactionary character, most of Hugh Jackman's lines in this movie, and this is me paraphrasing obviously to be funny, but most of the lines are him being, "Would you fuck up?" Like, it's that for 2 hours.
But did we not have that already with Cable in Deadpool 2? Just because I rewatched it again, and we've had that already.
Basically. And it is just, like I said in my Letterboxd review, it's as if he's forgot how to play Wolverine. And obviously it's not. It's just bad writing from the fucking 6 credited writers that there is.
Including Ryan Reynolds.
Including Reynolds. And it just, there isn't really a real point where he gets a moment like in X2, you know, when the people attack the mansion, or, you know, some of the cool moments in Logan. There isn't really any of those moments. He just sort of is there. And that is a problem with a lot of the characters in the movie. Even the cameo characters, you could have replaced them with any other actor from any other Fox, you know, Marvel franchise, and it really wouldn't have made a difference. It just kind of seemed like, one, who would be funny, which is obviously, you know, important when you're making a comedy, but 2, they didn't think about, would that also elevate the story? And in a way, it doesn't, apart from a certain cameo from someone that has been spoiled in one of the trailers. I don't want to say it, but if people want to see, that cameo is cool, and I wish the trailers didn't show it. But again, you know, with this not being the Wolverine that we know, the kind of sentiment of that character being a cameo sort of falls flat.
Okay, so it's out in cinemas now. I'm guessing it's going to be around for a while. It's the one big MCU movie this year. They have put a lot of money into the marketing. I'd love to actually know literally what their marketing budget alone for this title is, and just to go, if that's what you spent marketing this one movie, what you could have spent making, you know, other movies. It's like going back to I forget the name of the director who made the statement at the Oscars earlier this year. Don't make one £200 million movie, make, you know, 10, 20 million pound movies instead. So that's just my little rant. I haven't seen it. I guess it's going to be around for a while. I'll get to see it. But the other big movie, I guess, in the last couple of weeks has been Twisters. You and I haven't got round to seeing it, but the lovely Joe McElroy, when he's not sitting behind you and worrying if Adam Neeson is dead, he's having the time of his life, by all signs of it, watching Twisters at 4DX.
What do you see?
It already has a nice structure. Moisture levels are just right and lots of cape.
What else are you seeing?
Flow is clean, pulling tons of warm, moist air from the south.
And when that warm air and moisture busts through the cap, it explodes in the atmosphere, creating an anvil. The vertical wind shear begins to rotate the updraft, forming a mesocyclone.
And here's the mystery.
We don't know how a tornado forms. We see the hook on the radar, but
what are all the invisible factors coming together? Every little detail that
has to be perfect. And it's a mix of what we know and everything we can't understand. It's part science, part religion.
Hi guys, I hope you're both keeping well. So Jim has asked me to tell you all about my experience of seeing Twisters recently. And it's not just any screening of Twisters, it was in 4DX. And all I can say is that it was one hell of an experience, to say the least. My experience of seeing something in 4DX prior to that was the Gareth Edwards Godzilla in 2014. And more recently, Titanic of all films. So it's very much a format that is suited to a certain kind of film. So, you know, a natural disaster film would be perfect for, like Twisters, or even Fast and Furious. So I told my girlfriend, right, we're going to see Twisters, but we're going to see it in 4DX. We'll have to. It's bound to be, amazing, or at least fun at the very least. So she went in knowing nothing really about the format. She just knew, right, the seats shake, maybe a bit of wind in that there, but nothing could prepare for it. Like, I felt like Mr. Bean in the Mr. Bean movie where he goes to the virtual reality roller coaster. Like, I felt like just turning to her and going, brace yourself. Just like our silent friend. But the thing about it was, went in the cinema, got our pick a mix, got our drinks, sat down, nice and settled. It was actually a full cinema as well, which was even better. It was always great to see. But to the left of us was a young couple, and then to the right of us was an elderly couple. And I swear, I don't think anyone was prepared for what was about to happen, because prior to the film, there's like a 4DX trailer just to give you a bit of taste of what's to come. And your seats shake, and the wind machine blows, and the lights flash, and the water like squirts all over you and stuff like that there. But it's sort of a tame version of it, just to give you a flavour of what's to come. So when the film started, I don't think anyone was prepared for it, because as soon as the opening scene begins, which is essentially just a giant storm scene, just the whole cinema was a riot, basically. Popcorn was flying everywhere. People were nearly falling out of their seats. The wind was going like crazy from the wind machines. The seats were shaking all over the show. I felt like I was going to get whiplash at one point, but I couldn't stop laughing at the same time. Water was flying all over you, and even the screen itself, you noticed it was billowing a lot. It also almost felt like when it sort of happens in the first film when they're watching The Shining at the drive-thru, and the screen shakes and it's eventually it just tears apart. It felt like that was happening as well. Like, I've never been in a more immersive sort of experience watching a film in my life. Now, as for the film itself, it's a simple enough story. It's basically Glenn Powell as the cowboy storm chaser against the scientist Daisy Edgar Jones. They're both dueling storm chasers, and they're in Oklahoma for what's to be a huge tornado weather event. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. And to be fair, you're going to see a film called Twisters. You're not going for the plot. You're going for the spectacle, and it really does deliver in that. But not just visually. If you're to see this in 4DX, you get everything. Like, I can't even begin to describe how crazy it was. Like, there was one particular storm sequence, I think it was about halfway through the film, the old lady to the right of me, something flew out of her hand. I can't remember what it was, but she went to pick it up, and it was only at the start of the scene, and literally me and my girlfriend were just like trying to reach over there going, leave it, stay there behind. Felt like the RTE reporter who years ago was like in the middle of a storm saying, don't make unnecessary journeys. We were like, don't pick up your bloody phone or whatever fell out of your hand. It was just immense. So sure enough, she didn't. And by the end of the scene, her I don't know if it was her husband or her partner, whoever, turned to her and said, I think we need seatbelts on these things. And you know what? He probably has a point, because, it's one hell of an experience. And then by the time you get to the end of the film, it's a homage to the original. It takes place in the cinema as well. And that experience was just so immersive. If you weren't won over by that point, or even dead from the experience, that scene would have really been, really the cherry on the top. It was just so much fun, because you felt like you were there with the characters as the whole place is, being ripped apart. I don't know how I would feel about the film probably watching it, at home when it released on streaming or, physical media, whatever. But seeing it in 4DX, it was just perfect. It's a standard summer blockbuster, and it fills its role. But seeing it in that format and that gimmick, it's just perfect. I would highly advise you to seek it out just for that experience. I had a lot of fun, and the next time, say, Roland Emmerich rolls around with another end of the world disaster, I'm going to be there opening night just to see what he's going to do within that format. Highly recommend seeing Twisters in 4DX. So get your ticket and maybe bring a change of clothes as well, because you're probably going to need them. So that's pretty much it. Bye.
So there you go, Adam. Sounds like Joe had an absolute ball. I bet that's not the first time he said to Catherine, brace yourself. But the less said about that, because I know Catherine listens. So hello, Catherine. I know you're never going to speak to me ever again after that. But Twisters, I've actually been busting to see, genuinely, because the dreamboat that is Glenn Powell. The last time we had you on the TV show, we were talking about Glenn Powell and Hitman. We both have professional crushes, and a lot of people are losing their are getting very flustered, I should say, over his wet t-shirt in this movie. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Glenn Powell in a wet t-shirt and a cowboy hat could ride me all night, Jim.
You would let him say brace yourself, Joe? Oh, not Joe.
I would turn around and go, Joe? Oh.
Cowboy Joe is back. You would definitely say brace yourself.
Here, it'd be 46, am I right?
You. So that's Twisters. Neither of us have seen that. We're going to move on. We're going to wrap up this first edition of the Ramble shortly. But before we do, one film I have seen, we got sent a screener, I have to say, it was Thelma. It's out in cinemas now, starring the great June Squibb. And I love June Squibb, Adam. Are you a fan of her as an actress?
Now, who's June Squibb when she's at home?
She's in loads. I mean, some people will know her as Sheldon's granny in The Big Bang Theory, but she's in Nebraska, she's in About Schmidt, and I'm nearly certain she's in, there's a film, apologies listeners, I'm frantically looking up here on IMDb, she is in a film, I think with De Niro. But she's just one of those great actors that you see popping up, and she's very rarely given a leading role. She's character actor. She's an older woman. She plays that role well, and she'll pop up. I'm just looking through IMDb. Loads of TV work from Glee, Big Bang Theory, Modern Family, as I've mentioned. 1 or 2 performances. Nebraska, I guess a lot of people will know her from as well. I'm not scrolling down anymore to go by, but I'm nearly certain she's in a film with Robert De Niro. So here, she plays 93-year-old, she's a widow, 93-year-old widow, and there's a scene early on in the film where she loves nothing more, Adam, than having her grandson round to watch Mission Impossible movies. There's a lot of references in this movie to Tom Cruise, and particularly the Mission Impossible franchise. And throughout the movie, there's a lot of set pieces that have nods to what Ethan Hunt would do. But what would happen if you put an elderly 93-year-old woman in that situation? Central premise: she is swindled out of £10,000 by a cold caller pretending to be her grandson, who says that he's in prison. She needs to send money to get him out. She's trying to phone everybody round, works herself into a panic, and sends off the money to this scammer who turns out, it's not much of a spoiler, he is mentioned in the credits, and I think a lot of the reviews have mentioned him, Malcolm McDowell.
Tell me where you're looking at.
It's a family and a baby, and they're everywhere.
Great. Are there words?
No, it says Lincoln Mutual.
Yup, it's an app. You need to find the X.
Well, there's no red X.
No, but it's not always red. Sometimes they hide it. So look closer.
Top right.
I X'd it.
Great! Remember? The computer's the library, and the search bar's the library. You're gonna ask it for information, and then it's gonna give it to you.
Where is the bank?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm asking the machine.
I can't hear you.
Is there a Sari or a Siri, or is she not in there?
She's not there. That's in your phone, but you don't need her.
What we then have, this 93-year-old woman, everyone starts to worry about how oh, she's a widow, she can't be living on her own. Maybe it's time to put her into a home. She's got very frail. You know, a year ago she had this and that in terms of health complications. And she then goes out and sets about getting this money back. She doesn't need your Uncle Liam. She doesn't go about in a violent way. She just goes about and saying, I'm going to get my money. Although she does get a gun. She gets her hand on a gun.
Well, it's America, isn't it?
Tell me where you're looking at.
It's a family and a baby, and they're everywhere.
Great. Are there words?
No, it says Lincoln Mutual.
Yup, it's an app. You need to find the X.
Well, there's no red X.
No, but it's not always red. Sometimes they hide it. So look closer.
Top right.
I X'd it.
Great! Remember? The computer's the library, and the search bar's the library. You're gonna ask it for information, and then it's gonna give it to you.
Where is the bank?
Are you talking to me?
No, I'm asking the machine.
I can't hear you.
Is there a Sari or a Siri, or is she not in there?
She's not there. That's in your phone, but you don't need her.
I have to say, Adam, I was really charmed by this. Genuinely, it's just an easy film to sit and watch. It's an hour and 47 minutes. My lovely wife, she usually, when we're watching something at home, she'll usually crochet, and I was looking up, she was kind of watching it quite a bit. There's enough laughs in there. You were talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. There's enough gags in there. It's not. The way I can put it, and it sounds like I'm going to be down on it. It's a nice little palate cleanser. From some of the big over-the-top action sequences, sometimes you just want to have the peril, Adam, of a 93-year-old woman trying to creep her way quietly through a lamp shop without knocking over any lamps. And I might not be selling it to you, but if you're looking for something that I guess not for the whole family, because there's a little bit of effing and jeffing, but there's a couple of moments in it where it touches on the heartstrings. It talks about there's a friend of theirs who they go to visit, and they suddenly realise, she's great, we're always go out for lunch, haven't seen her for a while, and they suddenly realise that this person is starting to decline. Her health is definitely waning, and that's a bit that pulls in the heartstrings. There's another sequence where we see June Squibb. She's a great actor. She's sitting in her bed, and she's got her hearing aids on. And weird, I've never seen it before, you can control your hearing aids with your phone. And she's able to listen in on her family, and she can hear them talking about her. And as I mentioned, talking about how frail she is, how maybe she shouldn't be living on her own. Maybe it's time to sell their house. Maybe it's time to get her into an old people's home. And you see her becoming upset. And it's just what, I think other actors might, breaking into tears or overact. All you really see June Squibb doing is she's kind of looking, you can see it in her eyes. It's show me everything without telling me anything. She just kind of see her with her controls on her hearing aid, just turns it down to silent. And I was like, I liked it. Again, it could be like stop motion, Adam. Might not be for you, but I really enjoyed it. It's out in cinemas now, I guess because we've got Twisters, we have Deadpool and Wolverine, we have Maxine, I know which we're going to talk about. Well, I guess Maxine at this point would be out of most cinemas. But Thelma, if you're just looking for something a little bit different in the cinema, and loads of nods to, as I say, Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is everywhere, but just the star of the show here, June Squibb. And I'm sure you haven't seen her in that much, Adam, but you will have. You will have, I guarantee you. You might not know, after we've finished the recording, IMDb, you'll have seen June Squibb in something. I think it's probably too early. This is what I always mention. I would love her to get like a nomination for awards season next year, but it's probably too early for that. It's probably going to be not, it's probably still in this year's or the previous awards season because it's done the festival circuit. Nice film. I would say it'll find its audience. That's the type of film that pops up on Amazon Prime, and you'll sit on a wet Sunday and go, let's put on Thelma. Hang on, this isn't the origin stories of Thelma from Scooby-Doo?
It's a movie that's been on my radar. I first seen it. I follow Clark Gregg on Instagram, and he was like, "I'm, really pushing this movie with June Squibb. June Squibb, actually, I looked up her IMDb, in Inside Out as nostalgia, but also in Meet Joe Black. I think that's probably where I know her from the most. And then, like you say, she's in hundreds of TV shows as the grandma.
Just a really good character actor. I would recommend it. We've talked about films on this pod that both of us haven't seen yet or got round to watching yet. So I think we'll wrap up this first part of the Ramble episode by talking about something that we have seen, and that is Longlegs. Again, you saw this in the cinema. I got a screener for it. We'll talk about it, but before we do, let's play a little bit of the trailer.
Will you tell me the honest truth about something?
I'll try.
Do you still say your prayers?
No, Mom. I never said my prayers, never once. They scared me. What's so funny?
You're right. No, our prayers don't help us. Prayers don't do a goddamn thing.
So that's a little bit of Longlegs. Adam, do you want to take the lead on this one? Creepy horror film, Silence of the Lambs, Mindhunter, Red Dragon, definite vibe, psychological cult, all things kind of a little bit of demonic stuff going on there. I don't know how spoilerific we want to be about this, but Micah Monroe, a very coked up, out there, Nick Cage performance. I say coked up, I say that in jest. He knows what he's doing. Nick Cage knows what he's asked. This is probably, if you think of that sequence in the bathroom in Mandy, this is probably, maybe bar the blood, maybe on a par with that throughout. I don't know. So did you like Longlegs, Adam?
I loved Longlegs, and from the trailer scared me, so I knew I was going in to enjoy this. But from the opening moments, literally right before the opening credits start, there is a reveal of Nick Cage's character, and I almost shit my pants. From there on in, it had me like you say, Silence of the Lambs, very heavy influence on it. But there's a lot of stuff. I text you in the last month talking about this. There's a lot of stuff that I think is underlying in Longlegs. I think semi-spoiler, there is the main character lady, Micah Monroe, has psychic abilities, as they say, where she's able to, she points at a house and she says that's the house where the killer is. Like, how do you know that? Oh, I just know. Not to be like, oh, Hardy 40, Adam gets it. But I think if you've ever been involved in any sort of like child abuse or child sexual abuse, there's a lot of repression that goes on in the mind. And I feel like her character isn't psychic at all. It is just repressed memories. And I think that's a really interesting take that Oz Perkins, he hasn't come out and said this, but I think it's underlying where, obviously the character of Longlegs, Nicolas Cage, he's creepy. He is sort of, without being like, he was a weirdo as well, Michael Jackson-esque. There's that sort of uncanny, is he a man, is he a woman type face to him. And I feel like a lot of people will go into this and watch the Nicolas Cage performance as, oh, Cage is just being crazy again. He's this eccentric guy, and he is to a point. But I feel like he's created a character that, like Freddy Krueger or like Jason, you wouldn't want to meet in a dark alleyway. you would be absolutely scared. Whereas Longlegs is a character you wouldn't want to meet during the day at a bus stop. He's just got that immediate aura of either this man is dangerous or this man has done something unhumanly wrong that it just hangs on him like a bad smell. And the whole movie sort of has that aura to it where you're just sat there being like, it's just dread for an hour and a half. And some people can take that, some people can't. Some people just, don't, when you can't take the pressure or something, so you just laugh. I think a lot of people and a lot of audiences, from what I've heard from friends, have laughed during this, whereas I seen it with an audience that was captivated.
I do think, having watched, and I watched it at home with my lovely wife, I think there is some attempts at intentional humour throughout that, and you get that particularly with Nick Cage. I liked it, I didn't love it, and I guess for me, all the good stuff is at the start, and a lot of it reminded me of, I know Silence of the Lambs is an obvious reference. There's a picture of Bill Clinton in the FBI office, so it clearly puts us in the same kind of time frame. We half expect her to walk in and maybe bump into Clarice Starling at some point. I guess those comparisons will always be unavoidable, and the film kind of leans into that, which I think is a good thing, but also makes you go and remember what an amazing film Silence of the Lambs is. Oscar winning. I think I might be wrong. It's one of the last few times it's took home. It couldn't be one of the last films to take home the big four. I think best film, best director, best actor, best actress. No, because I think we've had the Michelle Yeoh film.
That was supporting, wasn't it, for Ki Wai Kwan?
Yeah, somebody message in, but I don't know. The thing that I find a little bit frustrating, and I guess maybe you read the film differently from, or maybe I've picked you up wrong, Adam. The sense, and I know it kind of goes into spoilerific territory in what I'm saying. The fact that it's not, I find, like Hannibal Lecter or Buffalo Bill, and let's be clear, the Nick Cage performance is closer to Buffalo Bill than what we get with Hannibal Lecter, but it's the sense that that's a man doing horrible, nasty things. I've said many a times, I'd be fucked if someone just goes, here, you wouldn't just give us a wee hand, getting a wee sofa into this van. No bother, mate. I'd be gone, right? But the way the film kind of plays out near the end, it does go into it that there's more of a demonic presence within the film. There's a couple of scenes that you see, and I'm wondering, is it going to be a film you'll want to rewatch a couple of times? There's like a Valak-like presence, and a couple of times nearly the start of the film, you're like, oh, did I see something? You might want to go back and rewatch it and go, oh, is that there? Is that there? Is that there? There's a thing about dolls. Apologies, I know that's going into really spoilerific, where the film kind of lost me a little bit, in that sense that I would rather, like, there's one sequence again near the end, it's just when we finally see Micah Monroe and Nick Cage in the room together, and these two opposing performances. She's doing this really contained, everybody else in this film is doing a contained, this is kind of hard-boiled, kind of crime drama, and then we have Nick Cage going, you aren't scared of the dark, are you? You were born in the dark. Happy birthday. Hail Satan. And I don't know if that works. I wonder, part of me, there's clearly been a choice either by Nick Cage, by the director, for him to go so OTT, like everyone else is at a 5, he's at like 30. He's at peak Cage. I don't know if it works, but I know where you're coming from. Like at the start, like there's just a sequence, and it's a flashback where I think he's singing a T-Rex song to a young Micah Monroe, and it's just like, I know it's there for not to be shock value, but for like an absurdist nature and the kind of the fact that his character is so out there. But then there's plot revelations, as I've mentioned, hints of there's clearly the presence of a cult. There's clearly the presence of, or alluding to, the kind of demonic presence. Is there, isn't there? And that's where I kind of went, it began unraveling for me near the end, but it had earned enough good grace. I love the use of the frame rates. I love the fact that we have kind of the memories, I think 4:3, then it kind of pads out. Score is kind of bare minimal, is great. Visuals, stunning. Oz Perkins, son of Anthony Perkins. Interesting to see some of his other stuff and see where he goes as a filmmaker. I just didn't. I've seen some reviews. I've read some reviews that have been really high praise for the film, and I think it's fine. For me, my problem is that, particularly near the end, I'm kind of like, I want to go home and watch Silence of the Lambs. I want to watch Michael Mann's Mindhunter. Everyone's talking about Silence of the Lambs. I know I've mentioned Mindhunter. Reminded me a lot at points of the tone of the Hannibal series by Brian Fuller. Isn't that Brian Fuller who did that? Reminded me of that, and then that was a series I adored. I think it kind of lost itself near the end, but the first series, I remember watching that around Christmas time and literally having to go out, or I think I had to watch The Muppets because I just found it so depressing and oppressing, and I need to watch The Muppets after this. I thought it was fine, but just coming back, you clearly didn't have an issue with the fact that we had this big over-the-top performance from Nick Cage and this really contained, very kind of holding a candle to Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs from Micah Monroe.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is more of a personal thing, but I've met people like Nicolas Cage in this. And I know that sounds fucking outlandish, but I worked in Botanic Avenue in Belfast. That should be enough to tell you that I've seen mental cases like this day in, day out.
Adam, are you like Rutger Hauer in Blade Runner? I've seen things people wouldn't understand.
100%. I've seen, like I said, it was on a podcast that made it. I've seen many a penis. The film I would compare this to the most is probably Exorcist 3. I think towards the end, the third act very much reminds me of the third act of Exorcist 3, especially with going to the house and, someone sort of being under the control of something. The only thing I will say about Longlegs, like you said, it built up enough good grace that by the time the third act came, it kind of over-explains just a touch. Sort of character motivations, and it's kind of like, okay, it was heavy-handed, but like you said, it built up enough good grace. By the end, I was like, that's fine. And then it is one of those movies that I text a couple of people because people were asking me how was it. There was probably about a day and a half of me sitting in the house, just like not shell shock, but like just fucking not in a bad mood, even just in a mood that like I just feel uncomfortable. And it's been years since I've felt like that seeing any sort of horror movie. You throw a lot of horror movies at me and I'm just unfazed, whereas this sort of it felt like I had a bad in-person interaction with somebody and I just couldn't shake the feeling of being uncomfortable. And for a movie to do that, that's always my merit. If a movie can make me feel the highest of highs or the lowest of lows, it's immediately on my list of movies that I'll always praise.
Okay, and another movie that came to mind, I'd actually scribbled down when we were watching it. I don't know if you'd agree with me. There's a sequence, it's a flashback sequence of sorts on a farm, and it kind of reminded me of the Scott Derrickson film Sinister. The horrible, nasty sequences in Sinister, there's sequences in that it reminded me of, and that's a horror film again. A bit like, I don't think it's, I think Longlegs is a much better film than Sinister, but I think there's another film. I think it's kind of a bit that sense of, we've got to wrap this all up by the end, creepy, unsettling stuff, nasty stuff, it gets enough grace to see it through across to the finishing line. Longlegs is like that for me. I do get a sense from other people, though, some have liked it, some haven't. And I think from watching it, I can completely understand why. Because we started this pod, or we got in this pod earlier on, we were talking about Deadpool and Wolverine. It's been hyped so much. I think the marketing for the film, I stayed away from it all. I watched the trailer back after, because everyone was talking about the trailers, and the trailers are perfect. The trailers are amazing for this film. I think it's a victim of its own great marketing campaign, but that's just me. But I think it's fine. I think we're not disagreeing greatly on the film. You just, I think, like it a bit more than me.
Yeah, it is. Like, on terms of, I talked about it in the pod that was in the last Ramble. In terms of great movies of the year, it's going to be up there with I Saw the TV Glow.
Okay, so high praise indeed. So I think we'll bring this edition of the Ramble to a close. And at this point, we should say thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed the pod, if this is your first time checking it out, make sure you subscribe so you get more ramble lists like this. And you can look back at our entire back catalogue, look on the website. As I say, we've got our events guides. I'm slowly in the process of being less lazy. I have a bit more time to myself of writing stuff. And we've also got some movie news we've added in there. So loads going on the website. As I say, there's a whole back catalogue of the podcast. And in a few days' time, you'll have a second serving dollop of this Ramble edition, because we've got a lot we want to get through. So you have that in a couple of days to look out for. And Adam, do you want to tell people what our plans are for August at this stage? You know, you've come up with this concept.
Thankfully, cinemas around the world have agreed to my terms, and they're showing all of the Spider-Man movies back to back over the next few weeks. Obviously, being a big Spider-Man fan, I don't know any young boy who didn't grow up with a Spider-Man action figure. I think it's impossible. Whether it be the 90s cartoon, the Maguires, the Garfields, and now the Hollands. So all of August, we shall be talking week to week about the Spider-Man movies and probably some opinions that might surprise people.
Okay, well, we've that to look forward to. So, if that hasn't got your web sense, your spider sense tingling, I don't know what will. So, yeah, that's all from this edition of the pod. We'll be back in a couple of days with a second serving of randomness. So, until then, goodbye.